If you struggle with anxiety, you probably have one thing on your mind, which is how long does it take for these symptoms to go away? Can you do something to make these physical symptoms, these intrusive thoughts, these feelings of unreality, the derealization, depersonalization, can you do something to make it go away? Do you have to wait it out? Is this always something you're gonna have to deal with? Is this always something you're gonna have to manage? What's the answer here? I struggled with the exact same thing. And in this video, I'm gonna share with you, honestly, how long it takes to recover, exactly what you need to do to make these symptoms go away. So let's get it started. So the number one question I get asked is, Shaan, how long does it take for these symptoms to go away? What can I do to make these symptoms go away? And a lot of the questions are also coming from fear. Is this something I'm always gonna have to struggle with? Is there a way that this can go away? Or is this always something I'm gonna have to deal or manage? And depending on where you go, you get different answers. And that in itself is very scary. You know, for me, my biggest symptoms were physical symptoms. I was getting really bad nausea, really bad digestive issues. I was getting a lot of panic attacks daily where I felt like I wasn't able to function. I felt like I was gonna pass out, or I was just feeling too dizzy and I was getting feelings of vertigo. And I started losing confidence in myself. What happens if I lose control? And I remember going to the doctors and saying, what's happening? Why are these symptoms there? And they would do a thorough test and they would say it's anxiety. And I said, okay, well, what do I do to make these symptoms go away? And they couldn't give me a straight answer. And that was very scary because I was used to going to doctors and saying, what's wrong? And they say, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is what we need to do, go back to living. And I've never had a situation where I didn't know what to do. There was nothing to do. And I couldn't get a straight answer. And then I would go to different people and I would even go to certain therapists and say, what do I do to make this go away? And they say, you can't make this go away. This is always something you're gonna have to struggle with. And I remember thinking it was just too devastating. These symptoms were too bizarre. They were too uncomfortable for me to be dealing with this for the rest of my life. It was just too intense. And everything I did, from all the Google searching I did, from all the supplements I tried, from all the forums I went to, from everything I did, it was always to make these symptoms go away. And for me, it wasn't just making them go away, but it was also how quickly can I make them go away? And if you're struggling with anxiety, you're probably going through the exact same thing. Well, I want to address it clearly. Is this something that will go away? The answer is yes. Now, the question next is, okay, but how long? Now, this is where it gets tricky. And the answer is, it depends. It depends on what you may be thinking. What are certain things that are going to be dependent on whether these symptoms go away or not? Well, a lot of it is based on how you're responding to these symptoms. See, you're thinking that if you're feeling these symptoms, let's say you're feeling a physical symptom like digestive issues like I was, or dizziness, or whatever symptoms you are struggling with, no matter what it is, just fill in the blank here. You're feeling these symptoms and you feel that you have to do something to make it go away, right? And you have this paradigm that I need to go to the doctor, or I need to Google search, or I need to do this, and if I don't do anything, this is always going to be something that I'm going to be dealing with. Or worst case scenario, this may be something that turns into something even worse. And so what you're struggling with really is you're looking at anxiety the way you would look at a medical problem. And the truth is, anxiety is not a medical problem. See, when you're going to doctors, what the role of a doctor is to really identify, is there anything that you're really struggling with that's caused by a physical issue? Now, when that is ruled out, then the default diagnosis is it's anxiety, right? And so if you have gotten everything ruled out, you're not getting a default diagnosis for the sake of it. You're actually getting something which is you're struggling with something that isn't being caused by something physical. Now, I know this is really hard to grasp and sometimes it's even hard to explain. The whole point of this is to really show you that what you are experiencing isn't being caused by something physical. It's by anxiety. And really what's happening is that it's your nervous system being sensitized. And what that means is your nervous system has become very sensitive. And because your nervous system has gotten very sensitive, you're starting to feel very bizarre feelings, very bizarre symptoms. Now, what's happening is that because you don't know why that's occurring, you're starting to focus on those symptoms. And as you focus on those symptoms grow. So the key is to not really focus on the symptoms so much, but focus on the anxiety. If you can get your nervous system to calm down, to desensitize, the symptoms go away on its own. So then your natural question is, okay, well, how long does it take to desensitize? Well, it takes as long as it needs. The real key here is really, are you focusing on responding to the anxiety? Because if you are responding to the anxiety correctly, the nervous system will naturally desensitize and the nervous system will naturally calm down on its own. You don't have to do anything to calm the nervous system down, right? Think about just being calm. If I was to tell you, how do I stay calm? How do I become calm? Can you show me what to do to calm down? You have to understand, calming down is not a doing. It happens on its own as a consequence. If you are not doing anything, you will naturally calm down on its own. It's the same thing with anxiety. If you're not doing anything to keep the anxiety alive, the nervous system naturally desensitizes. So what are you doing to keep this alive? Well, I always describe it as like the 5 F's, right? You're doing one of these 5 things, if not all of these 5, which is you're trying to fight it, you're trying to fix your symptom, you're trying to focus on your symptom, you're getting frustrated by your symptom, or you're fearing your symptoms, right? And so one of the biggest things I find is people fear their symptoms because they don't know what's happening. And so one of the first things I always say, before even you try to focus on eliminating these symptoms, understand what's happening. Understand the mechanics of what's happening because that will demystify a lot. You know, one of the phrases is knowledge dispels fear, and that's 100% true. What keeps people in the anxiety cycle is they don't know what's wrong, and because they don't know what's wrong, they always think worst case scenario. They don't know why their heart's palpitating, so it must be, what if it's the onset of a heart attack? They don't know why they're getting intrusive thoughts, and so they'll naturally think, well, what if I act on these thoughts? Right? They're always thinking worst case scenario because they don't know what's happening. So I highly challenge you, really understand the mechanics of anxiety first. That won't get you to recovery, but that'll be the starting point. It'll point you in the right direction. So if you really want to know that, I wrote a free ebook, really breaking down the mechanics of anxiety, really what's happening, even how to respond to your anxiety so that your nervous system desensitizes. And remember, as your nervous system desensitizes, the symptoms go away on its own. So the link is down below. Definitely check it out. Now, the last thing I want to mention is even as you start responding, your symptoms will go away last. There were times where I was responding very well, that I was going back to doing things that I wasn't doing before. I became agoraphobic. I couldn't leave my house. I went back to living, and I was living with these symptoms. But for once, I wasn't trying to fix the symptoms. I wasn't trying to focus on the symptoms. I was trying to just let them be there and focus on what I needed to get done, letting them be there side by side. And what happened was that some of the symptoms were still there. Some symptoms went away quicker than others. It wasn't that they all fell away all at once, right? Some symptoms dropped off, and the more stubborn ones stayed a little bit longer, but they disappeared on their own. But I knew one thing very clearly. If I went back to trying to fixing the symptoms, I would spiral back. And I tried that a few times in my recovery. I was getting better, and then I would try to find ways to speed up my recovery. And so I would try to do things to make the symptoms go away. And what happened was that I would spiral out of control again. I'd go back to reassurance seeking. I'd go back to Google searching. I'd go back to my doctors. I would go back to these online forums trying to figure these things out. And so I learned very quickly that I just need to let the symptoms be there, let them be there as much as it needs to be. And what happened was that it was there, but I was still having fun. And over time, I was having so much fun that I didn't even notice that it was gone. And sometimes it would pop up and sometimes it wouldn't. And then still the symptoms would disappear even more. And some of the symptoms would disappear even more. And then even when the symptoms went away, I don't even know. So to wrap up this video, to help you really understand, if you're focusing too much on trying to fix the symptom, that's not going to work. This isn't a medical problem where you need to focus on the symptoms and try to find ways to alleviate the symptoms. That's actually what keeps people in the anxiety cycle. That's what keeps people trapped. So a better approach is to focus on the anxiety. And once you fix the anxiety, then the symptoms will disappear and it will go away. Now, how long does it take? Varies. Sometimes Some symptoms drop off in a matter of a few weeks. Some take a few months. Some take even more than a few months, over 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. But these symptoms die down over time. The symptoms don't disappear again overnight. It's not like you have to wait 9 months and then the symptoms go away. The symptoms die down over time. And again, to make this even more complex, because recovery is an up and down affair, is you also deal with setbacks along the way. But again, however long it takes, right? You can still be enjoying your life. You can still be focusing on what you want to do. And you will find people out there that struggle with this for years, sometimes even decades. And I'm not saying that to scare you, but I'm just letting you know that if you're not focusing on the right steps, the symptoms do stay longer. But no matter how long you struggled with this, once you focus on the right steps, the symptoms go away for good. There's people out there that have recovered who had been struggling with anxiety longer than you've been alive, right? And so that should be a sense of optimism that no matter how long you struggled, you can recover. And don't look at this as a negative thing where if someone struggles for X amount of time, that means you'll struggle. Once you focus on the right steps, that's it. And people learn the right steps during different times of their journey. So anyways, I hope this video helped, and I'll see you in the next one.